or the team. Okay? We have the business driver or the team. Now, the business driver have what drives them. The owner, the end state. How do you build this support system? These support systems are everywhere around the world. You cannot find them around your community. So you need to take advantage of the digital space. So when we're talking about digital space, we are talking about LinkedIn, we are talking of Instagram, we are talking of B2B, you're talking of LinkedIn, you're talking of B2C, you talk about Instagram. But what is important about you feeling yourself with the right information and the right encouragement within the support team will determine how far you can go. Because obviously, they will be challenging time. I remember when I was listening to Big Gay some time ago, one of the support systems is Warren Buffett, where when things goes down, you go back to him to rub mind together and then get encouragement and keep moving. Now, because of what we do, we need a support system. How do we go into building a support system? We can take about the digital space. But we need to show authority in the industry we want to attract within that same industry. Because you want somebody that has the same vision with you, you have somebody that has the same interest with you, you have somebody that has the same drive with you, and you have somebody that is going to take risks like you. Because there are some times that things go hard, that people come back from their vision and your determination. But this supposed to do that you are able to build will determine how far you can go. And what are the things you need to do? Think about the digital space. Show knowledge within the space you want to attract your support system from. And you don't need a lot of people when it comes to support system. You need just few people. Sometimes it could be mentorship, but it started for an interest group. When you and someone within the industry share the same ideology, share the same interest, and encourage each other through information sharing in such a way that at the time that you need a support, you can harness from the relationship that you have built through the digital space. And the good thing is that you can actually have whatever support system in the US, in China, in India, anywhere of interest, as long as you guys have the same interest at heart. Now, what is the essence of this support system? It helps you navigate through the hard time. There are going to be times that things are going to be hard. But you can only talk to people who are in similar shoes to help you grow, to advise you. Somebody that does not have experience in something cannot advise you. And people that are not as determined as you might not be able to encourage you. So you need people who have same level of determination, the same level of expectation from life. Okay? So another thing that we need to do with our digital space when we are building our personal influence is that we need to build a knowledge engagement group. Knowledge engagement group are people who have similar ideology. This is bigger than support group. There are people who you engage with their content, you share resources together, you build a kind of empowering system within the industry in such a way that the industry identify with you guys, with your knowledge, with what you're doing. The advantage of building a knowledge group is that it gives you access. For instance, it's easier for me to get somebody within my knowledge group to support whatever I'm doing, because already we have similar ideology, we have similar knowledge, and we have supported each other in so many ways, and we have begun to build trust. Trust are built over when you do a lot of knowledge sharing, knowledge that are genuine and are imparting the community that is impacting the community, it is easier to leverage and build that knowledge engagement group. So you, because most likely they are also facing similar situation and they also have the same expectation. So they help you to grow. But how do you form this support system? Before I go further, yesterday I checked, I realized that we only have 5 million people on LinkedIn that are in Nigeria, while we have 85 million in US and 75 million people in India. This is really very poor. These are really very poor. These are networks that have been created for us to take advantage. And that is why you can expect the kind of impact Africa is making. We still have a long way. There's still a lot of things that has to be done within the African space. And you have to start for how we build our support system. What kind of information do we consume? What kind of people do we relate with? Who are our close group that help us navigate to the next level? So, but for you to build a digital support system, first of all, you need to show knowledge within the space that you want to dominate or you want to work with. So you need to be able to contribute within that space and tactically form a relationship with people that have the same like mind and same determination, who does not happen in one day. It's time for an interest group, it's time for support, it's time for engagement. Sometimes it takes 1 year, it takes 2 years. From there, you move from online to offline and build a powerful relationship with people who are like minded like you and help us to grow even during the hard time. Network, like what we're doing now, you have to build network, build relationship that can help you grow. Secondly, you need to select your product carefully. Thirdly, you need to make sure your revenue model supports growth. So we will be waiting for Professor Individual to come online. Professor Individual is the keynote speaker for this program. So let's expect the very best. This guy is just an amazing guy, really doing amazing things. He's going to be coming online to take over the mic. So get ready for the very best. He's going to tell us on exponential growth.
Okay, let me know when I should begin. Thank you so much, and moderator. Topic, building high growth category king companies in Africa. Just limited, I'm DBC Ekekwe, and I'll begin. Moderator, can you also pause or mute this, the sound? So what happens? Somebody says, I'm going to start off a bank. That individual opens a bank. You take that your money to the bank. The bank now takes that money, pays you an interest rate, and now lends that money to somebody else. By doing that thing, the bank has fixed a friction which has existed between both of you. So companies now ask you to pay them. That is how companies generate revenue. And companies can only generate revenue if they have provided a service that overcomes a friction that customers have. So this construct cuts across all segments. It's the same thing that happens in banking, the same thing that happens in restaurant business, the same thing that happens in transportation. Even in education, you have a need to be educated, you have to look for university that will deliver that service. You pay that university, and that university gives you that education. Now, if we now understand the mission of farms, the next thing is looking at the phases of building great companies. You have known the essence of business. You have a clarity on your vision. This is what I want to do. I want to go into the market and make good food so that when people are hungry in Addis Ababa, they can come to that restaurant and eat the best possible meal they can eat in Ethiopia. And for you to have that mission executed, you need to have capabilities. Capabilities are things that you have acquired that essentially position you from being that individual who can actually offer the service. You can have capabilities in banking. You can have capability in making orikoi, the good food they make in south part of Nigeria. You can have capability in jollof rice. Depending on whatever you are doing, you need to have capability. Capabilities are now what differentiates your company in its ability to actually create processing services that those customers will come and buy. If you do not have a capability on something, interestingly, you cannot offer services, you cannot offer products in that particular domain. Then when you have acquired capabilities, you have to validate, you have to test to make sure that at the end of the day, that you actually know what you thought you know. This is a very, very critical part because anyone can say, I'm a genius. Anyone can say, I know this thing very well. But it turns out that sometimes when you think you know so much, markets will not even pay you for that. What that means is what you think you know may not really be good enough because customers are not interested in paying you for those services because they don't think that you are bringing great value. So as you do that, you keep improving, you keep delivering, you keep extending hypotheses of anything you know, and you keep expanding the frontier. So companies have to go through many of these phases. And one thing that is evident is the ability to remove frictions, which customers have. Because at the end of the day, every great company must solve a customer's problem. Every great company must be in the business of fixing frictions which customers have. And as you do that, there are pillars that will drive any business growth. The first one is knowledge. A company needs to have knowledge. You need to understand that without knowledge, you cannot advance. The knowledge of farms is the future of farms. The knowledge of nations is the future of nations. When companies do not have the capacity to acquire, to refine, to develop, to accumulate new knowledge systems, they cannot advance. And this extends not just in companies, even nations. The greatness of countries can also be correlated with their capacity to generate new knowledge. If you go through the empires of the old, if you go through the modern empires of today, one thing is evident, that the great nations of the earth are countries with great university systems. The great countries of the earth are countries that have a good educational system. And when we're talking about good educational system, it does not necessarily mean that it has to be the typical going to typical university. could also be that they master the arts and the mechanics of having the capacity for young people to develop capabilities that they can solve problems. If you go to Germany today, they have their vocational educational system. If you go to the United States today, they have some of the finest universities in the world. What has happened there is that they have figured out how to accumulate new knowledge. And by accumulating new knowledge, they can drive vistas, opportunities in new terrains that many people may not imagine. So for African, for example, we need to have knowledge. We need to have capacity to learn. We need to have capacity to accumulate new knowledge. And even as we are doing that, even our companies need to do that. From the time of the pharaohs to the time of the Greek empires, nations that have won in the accumulation of knowledge have been the nations that dominate all the economic systems. If you go back even to the time of Bible, even the time of Nebuchadnezzar, even at the time of Joe Biden, I see that nations that do well in those spaces have always dominated. And of course, having knowledge alone is not good enough. You also need to have people that can move into new domains and now create real impacts by combining and recombining factors of production so that at the end of the day, they can go and fix frictions in the market. These are entrepreneurs, risk takers that can now say, hey, there is no railway system in this country. I think there is an opportunity for us to go and build a railway system. This person can say, there is no fintech solution in this economy. Let me go and build it. These are entrepreneurs. So you need entrepreneurial capitalism, where people can become risk takers, using that knowledge to create products and services, which at the end of the day, will solve the problems that the customers have. Because if every person is just talking, nobody is taking action, there will not be an opportunity for growth to happen. Because growth can happen when somebody has a mission, and that mission is fixing frictions which the customers have. And of course, you need labor. Because at the end of the day, human systems have to actually manage all the elements. You need to have young people that are coming out of universities that are trained. You need to have young people that have these ambitions that they can become the messengers of building the future. And at the end of the day, you have to harmonize three things: the people, the processes, and the tools. The people, the processes, and tools encapsulate everything that we do in a company. A company needs to develop processes. You need tools in order to work on those processes, and you need human systems to bring order in them. When you can refine your business processes, when you can institutionalize the processes that are upon your company run, when you have good people and you have good tools, you know one thing, you are now in a position to solve frictions that customers have and now begin to advance the mission of France. So over the last many years I have been working, one of the things I have put together is having the characteristics of growth companies. You know, you're looking at what really differentiates great companies, growth companies from other companies. So before I just move into that, let me explain how great companies actually work. They have this kind of a new DNA system. They have this kind of a new philosophical construct that is totally different from what everyone does. Companies have become billion-dollar category king companies. They do not just focus on serving the needs of customers. They focus on going beyond customer needs, customer expectations, to customer perception. What do I mean by customer perception? The needs of customers are things that customers know they need. If you just focus on serving them, you will not be a category king company. A category king means in your specific industrial sector, in a specific category within that sector, you are the best. You can say in the social media business, Facebook is a category king in connecting families and friends. You can say that in microblogging category in the social media ecosystem, Twitter is a category king in the microblogging. You can say in short videos that TikTok is a category king. So within a sector, there are categories. And becoming a category king means you don't just focus on serving customer needs. You go beyond their needs to the expectations, to their perception. What do I mean by that? If I'm an environmental activist, I'm not one. If I'm an environmental activist, for example, and you're giving me electricity from coal, you have met my needs of electricity, but you have not met my expectation. So even any day you keep just thinking that you can give me that electricity from coal, and a young man comes with renewable energy, and that renewable energy is coming from solar. You know what? Even though you've met my needs, that individual has also met my needs by giving me electricity, and now has also met my expectation by providing that electricity from coal, from solar. So that means that you need to go beyond the customer needs, and now you need to go beyond also the customer expectations. But the greatest companies on earth are companies that go beyond needs, expectation, to perceptions of customers. Perceptions of customers are giving customers things they never imagined they need. But the day they see that product in the market, they begin to say, oh, this was what I had been imagining, but I did not even know the possibility that somebody can create. It is at that dimension where you move your consumers to customers and customers to fans. When a company can move its customers to become fans, that company has moved into a new dimension of becoming a category king. Because fandom, the capacity and ability to turn your customers to fan, is one of the biggest characteristics of knowing when a company is becoming a category king within its own sector. So what do I mean by that? It means that a young man has just told the boss in New York City, sir, Apple is going to do a new product introduction, and I want to be the first in all the millions of people on this earth to buy the iPhone. The young man works hourly wage in the United States, but he wants to take a day off. He understands one thing, that if he does not work that day, he will not be paid, because his job is hourly. If he doesn't come to work, he's not going to be paid. But he doesn't care. He takes a day out of work. By 3 a.m. in the morning, he wakes up in New York. He now, under the extremely chilling New York winter, he leaves his house 3 a.m. He goes to Best Buy. He queues at Best Buy. He is waiting for Best Buy to open 9 a.m. so that he will be among the first people that go and buy the iPhone. And when he now gets there, he takes out his 2 weeks of wage, salary that he has earned within 2 weeks. He pays for the iPhone. He takes the iPhone home. He has wired his house with cameras and webcams, telling the world, streaming everywhere on Facebook, social media, telling them, I have got a new iPhone. That guy is not a customer. He is a fan. And Apple has gotten him into the level of fanhood. And when companies can demonstrate that level of capacity, that ability to turn their customers into fans, you know that they are now becoming extremely growing companies that are becoming category kings in that specific domains. It's not just Apple. I recall vividly when I was still in secondary school many years ago, there was a bank called Diamond Bank that was started in 1990, thereabout. They say that before Diamond Bank in Nigeria, using Nigeria as an example, you go into a bank to pay for something, to withdraw money, you have to spend hours. And then if you go to another branch of a bank, unfortunately, you can't withdraw your money. You have to go to the specific bank where you open the bank account. But when Diamond Bank came with the Diamond Integrated Banking System, for the very first time, Nigerians had the opportunity of opening a bank account, let's say in Lagos, and you can operate the same bank in Kano, in any part of the country. That was a category king vision. That was also giving customers into a level of perception that they never even imagined that was possible in the bank. And as you do that, you begin to change the dynamics of the market equilibrium points. So great companies are perceptively innovative. They are companies that work at the level of perception. They are not companies that are serving just the needs and the expectations of customers. They are companies that meet you at the point of your imaginary. You've never even imagined the possibility of such, but the day they come, you embrace them. They are also evidently inspired. When you use their products, you see a high level of inspiration because they are actually very, very great. They are ruthlessly pragmatic. They get it done. The way they promise it to work, that is the way it works. So when they say, please open up this product package. This is the way it is going to function. That is the way it functions. There is no story because they are ruthlessly pragmatic. And they have this customer obsession. Customer obsession is talking about the domain that until the customer is happy, they do not give up. When you look at companies like Amazon, when you look at what Amazon does just to make customers happy, you begin to understand why Amazon is one of the largest companies on there. So if you are looking for growth, these 4 characteristics are things that must be evident in your company. And if you do them, the possibility here is that you are no more going to have customers, but you are going to have fans. Fans are apostles in markets because fans are going to help you move your message beyond where you are. And as you do that, remember one thing. I'm not here to talk about technology. You know, many people see that technology is supremacy. Growth comes through having the best possible business model. Growth comes not just building the best technology. Growth actually comes when a visionary leader has a great business model in a business. I like to give this example. There was a former CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, who's a very, very great guy. He ran Microsoft for many years. I think the market capitalization of Microsoft was around $336 billion around 2013, 2012. At the same time, IBM was also within that realm. But Steve Ballmer said, if the product was not on Windows, let's leave it. He did not want to do anything with iPhone, iOS. He did not want to do anything with Android. He believed that the world must be built around Windows. So Microsoft stalled. Microsoft did not grow. Microsoft did not advance. And Microsoft was just like IBM. But they're now changing one day and brought a guy called Nadella Satella. Nadella came in and said, I am going to run a new business model. The same products, the same technologies, the same staff, but he changed the Microsoft business model. What did he do? He said, if the new customers are in iPhone, Microsoft will be there to serve them. If the new customers in Android, Microsoft will be there to serve them. I don't care whether they are in Windows, iOS, or Android. All I know, they can pay money to use Microsoft products. So he now changed the business model of Microsoft. You know what, gentlemen and ladies? In less than 6 years, he turned that $336 billion into more than 1 trillion market cap. I know today, the last I checked, that Microsoft is more than 2 trillion. But you know what is happening to IBM? IBM is still around 140 or 130 billion dollars because IBM did not go through that translation. That is the reason why Microsoft can buy IBM and still have a change of more than 2 trillion. Because IBM has been filing more patents, building more technologies, but it has not changed the business model in a world that has been redesigned by mobile internet. So my point is this: the most important thing to drive growth is your business model. If your business model is not in tuned and not optimized for the exigencies of the market systems which we are running today, no matter what you do, you are likely going to fail. So look at your business model if you are looking at growth. So I just have some examples here. When you look at a company like M-Pesa, to say that M-Pesa came up with a new dimension, to look at just noted Diamond Bank and also Amazon, Indomino, these are great companies. But I want to focus on Tesla. When you buy a Tesla car, you're not just buying a car like Toyota. Tesla is actually a software company that makes cars. Because if you buy Tesla, you need to keep paying a fee every year or every month. You need to keep sending them money. Unlike when you just go and pay from Toyota, from Coscaris, or wherever, you never have to send them money. What is happening here is this: Tesla sells about 500,000 cars in a year. Toyota sells 10.5 million cars. But the market capitalization of Tesla, I think, is more than $800 and something billion now, while Toyota is less than 300 billion. So why is that? The reality here is that Tesla runs a totally different business model, even though it's a car company. It's not just about making something. It's not about building technology. The greatest contribution of Tesla is that it has a business model that makes it look like a software company. So the fact is this: the pillars of greatness will always be, you need to have a big idea. You need to have a super team that will translate that idea into products and services. And then those products and services have to be awesome, and you need to execute. When you have awesome products from superior execution, you have great companies. That is the equation of how to build category king companies. And then there are so many dimensions of that. Just because of them, I will not go deep into them. But one thing is evident is this: there are some cases where you need to go and pioneer new markets. There are also sometimes when you need to go into an already existing market and create a new basis of competition, defining the ordinance in that market so that you become a king. So you could look at what Dangote did. He got into cement business. He created a new basis of competition. He won. But when he got to making noodles, he struggled, and he actually lost the noodles business. Dangote noodles actually sold Indomie noodles because Indomie noodles could not allow Dangote noodles to overcome. So the point I'm making here is that growth can come in many ways. But any great category king company has always made itself to become an operating system in its category. When you go to microblogging, the operating system is...
Prof, remember to take some question, Prof.
Okay. I think you gave me 40 minutes. Am I actually close?
You are still on track, but remember to set time for some questioning, maybe
Okay.
2 or 3.
Okay, great. So
take your message.
Okay, great. So there are opportunities, and there are so many areas and dimensions that all these sectors are looking for growth, from agriculture to health, financial services to education to technology. We know that there's so many new things that can happen there. But the point is evident that if you want to have growth, especially in digital space, you need to look at your unit economics. You need to look at what you call marginal cost. Marginal cost is the cost of having an additional customer. Let me make this very clear here. If you look at this plot, if your output, which means your production output is increasing, what typically happens is we have what we call economies of scale. You're not producing many things in that factory, on that company, on that product line. Over a period of time, the cost per unit will drop. But after a time, even when you now start producing more, the cost begins to go up. If you remember your secondary school economics in SS1, this is an average fixed cost kind of curve. But in the digital space, this plot does not go up. It looks like what they call in mathematics an asymptote. An asymptote is a mathematical construct where a curve will never reach another point, even at infinity. So this is very, very key, because in digital technology systems, they have what we call a virtuous cycle, that the more users they have, the better they become. You know, if you can attain this in your company, you are going to be likely a category king. And that is the reason why Facebook can keep growing on this earth and nothing will stop it, because you never have the diminishing returns that its marginal cost will begin to go like this. So I think too much technicalities there, but let me just try to round up here, because it seems that I need to take some questions. If you look at OPay, the largest financial institution in Nigeria today, interestingly, many of us may not know that, OPay is worth $2 billion, and that makes it bigger than GT Bank, looking at market valuation. I think GT Bank is worth around $1.6 billion, but OPay is worth $2 billion. So if OPay is the largest financial institution on market capitalization in Nigeria, it means that we can use it for a lot of case studies. OPay has built a business model based on aggregation model. And if you look at growth cases, aggregation runs about 80% of the 10 largest companies in the world. So in other words, there are business models that have been validated that in the time that we live, they are going to be extremely powerful. And then when you come to M-Pesa, M-Pesa use new technology nations as a new basis of competition when he made it possible that your phone can become your bank branch. And you look at Tesla, the greatest innovation in Tesla is pricing. It's not even the technology. If Tesla is making electric vehicles without those software like subscription model, Tesla will not be where it is today. So it is key you understand that your business model is the most important element for you to drive that compounding acceleration of a tutor cycle that will actually make you a very, very dominant company. Around the world today, there is a sound that is loud. That is the sound of the unicorns. Companies with a minimum $1 billion valuation. You could see how many of them have been minted.
You have 2 minutes to go, Prof.
Okay. Okay, let me just take the question. Things that's because of time. So thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. I'll be very happy to take your question. Thank you.
Try to get on a plane and go to the store and lose out on your pay and spend all of your money on this phone just to tell people. But it's a whole lot easier to get people excited about you. So one of my Apple executives that's a client, he's getting a lot of traction on who he is as a person. Okay, all of a sudden, when he gets that new iPhone, people care about the new iPhone that might not have even cared about Apple. And he's getting bonus by Apple because they love that he's building this personal brand. And so I think one of the things I want to talk to is how do you build that personal brand? For me, it's LinkedIn. And how do you build the personal brand on LinkedIn? It's to stop talking about your company so much. So I see so many people whose title on LinkedIn is, senior recruiter at Deloitte or whatever it might be, right? Product manager at Apple. And I think that's the first big problem that people are making. Your profile already says your job title and your employer. So why have that be your entire real estate of who you are that shows up next to your name every time anyone on LinkedIn can see you? So for mine, for years, it said waiter turned entrepreneur. That resonated with my buyers. I'm now at a point, I serve as chairman of the company, but I have a couple of other companies, and I'm really taking this LinkedIn growth thing for people seriously. So I changed my headline about a month ago to I create LinkedIn influencers, and I've had over 300 inbound leads just from changing that headline. If that headline said CEO at Shedwool, none of those people would have reached out to me, right? Even when it said that, people had to have known what Shedwool was to even have the fact that I was the CEO of the company make any sense to them. No one on LinkedIn was going, wow, that guy's the CEO of Shedwool. That's amazing. However, right, waiter turned entrepreneur, people that had waited tables or that were in restaurant tech, they did care about that. They leaned into that message. Now that I have the even more general and broad message, even more people are leaning in because people on LinkedIn do want to become LinkedIn influencers. So, I have clients whose head says things like, right, their attention deficit disorder into a superpower. They don't have time. When they see the 5 minutes a day, they know that guy gets them. So if you're going to build a community as a brand, the first thing is that headline on your profile. How do you get people to really get excited when they see your name and they see those first 5 words about you? Because you can start to get very deliberate and very strategic about where you're engaging on LinkedIn. So you find somebody like my partner, Anthony James, and you start engaging with him. He has 3 million followers. He might not see your engagement, but what about all the thousands of people that see his posts, that see his activity on the platform? When they start to see your name with your great headline next to it, every time you engage with him, you begin to build that brand. You begin to build that rapport. You begin to build that personal brand that does build community around it. So that when you start, a campaign or you start a new job or you start to talk about something that you care about, people are starting to really know who you are, what you care about, and they can lean into that. And so I think that is the trick, right? Is starting to build something around yourself, not your company, because you may be a senior executive at IBM and you may have been there for 15 years and you may be spending time on social media building that brand up, and they may downsize or they may get acquired, right? Microsoft might buy them, as the professor was saying. All of a sudden, you're known as the IBM guy and you're no longer even there. But if you built a brand around being a semiconductor guy or a, whatever it might be, person, then your next role, it makes a lot of sense. And you can bring that big bang that you had brought to your last employer to your next employer. And sometimes that even, translates to getting paid more in a salary or getting paid more of a bonus to sign on to the company or something of that nature. And so once you've optimized kind of your headline and your banner, how do you build the actual community? How do you get people really excited about you? For me, that's really easy. It's the law of reciprocity. You get what you give. And so if you want a bunch of people to love who you are, you have to find a bunch of people that you love who they are and show them love on LinkedIn, right? The more people that you're edifying, the more people that you're engaging with, and sometimes it can be as simple as giving them a like or a comment on their content. The more people you're doing that for, first of all, you're getting your name in that great headline out there. But secondly, the more people start to do that with and for you. And Sam's been a good example, a lot of the other speakers as well. You start to notice that once you put in that time and effort of really trying to let people know who you are and putting yourself out there in the right circles, you start to get a bunch of followers from around the world and from your industry and from your region that want to do business with you. They get to know you and they care about when you have wins to celebrate and who care about when you have something to say. And when you're posting content as your personal brand on a social media platform like LinkedIn, one thing I see a lot of people do that is not as effective is just talking about themselves. Most brands, even if you look at the Gary Vaynerchuk, right, some of these bigger people, they make it all about their audience, not them. So if you start to show up and talk about your audience and talk about other people and give them space to sell whatever they're selling, to talk about whatever makes them awesome. First of all, it makes you look awesome by default. Second of all, the right people start to lean into that and they go to your profile that tells them everything that you're about, everything that you're doing, every way that they can do business with you. So it's a psychology. It's a showing up authentically. It is having your profile or your representation of yourself be very clear about your value proposition, and then just being a supportive member of that community. And people love that. We're talking about building a community as a brand. You are literally building your community just by engaging with your community, by supporting your community, and you become known as this engaging, supportive person that people want to do business with. And I'm noticing a lot of people recently, I've been on the platform on LinkedIn for about 3 years now, and I've got hundreds of millions of views on my content, hundreds of thousands of followers. But in those 3 years, I've seen a lot of people who started to take this seriously, personal branding, repositioning themselves so they're not an ambassador for someone else's company, but a representative of themselves as a human on earth. All of a sudden, these people, their followings have been going up, their content has been doing better, and now they're starting companies. I've been seeing time after time after time, it must be 100 people in that neighborhood that I'm aware of that have started companies after building a brand on LinkedIn. So when's the time to start building the brand? It's right now. You don't need to have a company. You can have an employer. If you have an employer that is going to make you very limited, what you might want to do is find a way around that. Maybe have 2 LinkedIn profiles, but I'm telling you, the time to start building a personal brand is right now. And you can begin to meet people that want to come work for you, want to come work with you. If and when you start something, they want to come and help make that a success. And when you're on Facebook, Twitter, some of these other platforms, frankly, in my experience, a lot of people don't want to see you succeed. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of backbiters, a lot of haters on these platforms, right? It's your ex-girlfriend from high school. It's your old coworker that never wanted to see you sell more things than them. On LinkedIn, however, this is a community of professionals that want to see each other succeed. You see a lot of people say together we rise and things of that nature. There is a community aspect. And so talking about what you care about, I see a lot of people, especially from the Nigeria region right now, starting to really boldly talk about things like equality, equity, technology that's really changing the world. We have remote surgeries taking place now. We have some really cool things, self-driving vehicles, drones, all of these things. So if you just start showing up with the people that are doing business in those spaces, and you start supporting them, and you start to really become someone that they know, all of a sudden maybe you get into the drones or the electric and self-driving vehicles or whatever it is, because you're known in those spaces. And so the more you engage with people and the more that you show up as an authentic person, the more that people lean into that. And I know people that are making strong six-figure income, right? So not too short of $1 million a year off of the personal brands that they've built on LinkedIn. And one of the companies that I've helped launch and scale is called Influencer Active. We're finding people that get engaging communities leaning in that actually have other people that you're an active member of the community, people start associating you with that person. I know a number of people that started engaging with Gary Vaynerchuk because they wanted his audience to think that they were on par with Gary Vee, or they wanted, when people thought of Gary Vee, they thought about this guy or this girl as well. And that's another great way to position yourself, is to just, if you want people to associate yourself with Sam, start engaging with Sam, right? In a meaningful way. You're not spamming him. You're not telling people anything, buy my product, buy my product. You're just showing up with this optimized profile, with this willingness to be part of a community. And you let people start to get familiar with you in those circles. All of a sudden, imagine if the next time you're looking for a job, you want to work for Zito. Well, people in that circle, you're familiar, they know who you are, right? Things like that. Man, all of a sudden you just got your dream job because you were building a personal brand, building a community around that, and strategically and deliberately showing up in places that were going to be meaningful down the road. So some of this is strategy. I don't know if anyone else that's watching right now plays chess like I do. I love to play chess, although somehow my phone's gotten smarter over the years. I have to go down a setting on my phone if I want to be able to win a game of chess anymore. But I love the game. I love the concept of the game, thinking several steps ahead, trying to anticipate others' moves. That's what social media is. And so, right, if your profile just says that you're a manager at this company, and if your content is just talking about what it is that you're selling, you're playing checkers, right? There's no, it's very transactional. It's, the people that you want to lean into aren't going to lean into you because you're leaning into them, telling them about a product, and they're leaning back telling you about a product, and neither one of you wants to buy from the other person. Whereas if you show up in these circles talking about what you care about, who you are, you can show up on other people's things where they're selling, and rather than say, well, listen to what I'm selling, you say, that sounds amazing, right? You're just being supportive. But now they see this headline next to your name that talks about what you're doing. They say, wow, this guy seems really nice. This girl seems really nice. They go to your profile. They say, wow, they're selling this amazing product. They're offering something, and I can try it for 7 days before I subscribe to it. Something like this. all of a sudden you start to get more inbound leads, you start to get more sales. So that's really, I think, a strategy that I see working in every industry, in every circle. And for me specifically, I see the success really being on LinkedIn. There are some more emerging platforms that I love. There's one called Hub that my friend Eric started. He was the co-founder of LinkedIn. So it's his next kind of social platform. And this one's on the blockchain. So it's all about trust and validation and being able to kind of see how you know certain people rather than just it's a second connection, it's a third connection. So that's another way to kind of level up the community as well. And I think there are a number of social media sites right now that are trying to help tie people together, with a number of different metrics, a number of different, proof points. But at the end of the day, right now for me, there's no need to be anywhere but LinkedIn as a professional if you're looking to build a personal brand. And again, and to kind of summarize, and then I'll see if there are any questions from the crowd. But the way you make yourself stand out is you build a brand around yourself, not a company or product. The way that you get your name out there to the masses is by engaging with other people. And when you tune into this law of reciprocity, it starts to pay dividends immediately. And this is not the type of thing, don't take my word for it, although if you go to my profile, go, wait a minute, how does he have so many followers and how do his posts do so well? Well, it's exactly what I'm telling you. But don't take my word for it, right? And, I don't want to be cavalier either. Some people say, well, you've raised millions of dollars, you've started these companies, so of course people know who you are. I'm telling you guys, I raised the money and became who I am because I did this, not the other way around. And so don't take my word for it. Once you adopt and adapt some of these best practices as well, and once you start to let that community...
Corey, you have 5 minutes to go.
Perfect. Let's see if maybe there's some questions, Sam, or if you want to ask me a question, put me on the hot seat.
Innovation, investment, advisory, and also into any currency. It's $1 billion entrepreneur, and we all are $1 billion entrepreneurs. Whether we look at it in terms of economic capital, whether we look at it in terms of knowledge capital, social capital, etc., etc. So we are $1 billion entrepreneurs. And today's theme cuts around my theme today, or my address today, is about global branding in the digital age. Okay. And I want us to sort of go back to some basics. And I'm a teacher, so I will not deny my roots in that sense. And when we talk about the digital age, what do we mean by the digital age? It's a time in the 21st century characterized by the rapid shift from traditional industry to that industrial revolution through industrialization to an economy based on information technology and knowledge. And that's really what it is. And what we've seen is this industrial revolution has created a new economic model. So let me just read a quote by Don Tapscott, and it says, the new economy is all about competing for the future. The capacity to create new products and services, the ability to transform businesses into new entities that yesterday couldn't be imagined, and that the day after tomorrow may be obsolete. And that's the world we're living in today. Right? You couldn't be imagined yesterday, but day after tomorrow you might be obsolete. So what that tells us is that we're on a conveyor belt, right? We're in a fast-moving space. Before we talk about fast-moving consumer goods. So now it's fast-moving consumer businesses or fast-moving businesses. And what are the tenets of this information age? Digitization is critical, right? Knowledge is critical. Professor Ndubisi spoke about knowledge. Knowledge is critical. You have to know. Globalization is critical, right? And because we live in a global space, there's no borders anymore. COVID has even helped us reinforce the fact that I can sit in Lagos and I can be talking to people in Malaysia, in Singapore, wherever in the world I want to be. This intermediation is critical, is also there. convergence and immediacy. I want it and I want it now. But when we think about this, all these tenets that we're talking about actually started at the turn of the millennium. That's 21 years ago. So a lot more has happened since then. We've now come into the fourth industrial revolution, and that's characterized by the interconnectedness and different technologies in the biological space, in the physical space, and also and that's when you see that we have new economic models. We have the sharing model now, we have on demand, we have the delivery economy. So all these things are really telling us that the world has shifted, right? The world has shifted. And before we'd look at us and we'd sit down, we're writing CV, sending CV to multiple people, carrying brown envelope under our arms to be dropping our CV left, right, and center. That's not the world we live in today. We live in a world of co-creation and self-creation and entrepreneurialism. So today, what I'm going to be looking at is branding. When we talk about global branding, right? Branding is really about promotion of, we used to look at branding from the promotion of a product or company. So when we talk about through advertising or design. So when we look at Coca-Cola, we all know what Coca-Cola looks like as a brand. When we look at McDonald's, we all know what McDonald's looks like as a brand, or Dangote as a brand. But today, we can't think about branding without the global context. And in the world we live in today as individuals, we also are brands, no longer products and services, right? So who is Samuel? Who is Yinka? We're all brands. And our brands are personifying everything we do, our physical, our appearance, our knowledge, etc., etc. That's what we're projecting through our brand, okay? So what I want to talk about today is really around three perspectives and three dimensions. First of all, I want to talk about it from the dimension of the entrepreneur, because we're all here to become billion-dollar entrepreneurs, right? Billion-dollar business people. But to do that, you have to capture and create value. And, President Dubuisi spoke about this in his business model. It's not about I have an app or I have a product. You have to capture and distribute value. You have to scale. We have a market of 1.2 billion people, but then how much is market share can you get from that 1.2 billion people? Is it 0.1%? And what is the return on 0.1%? But before you can do that, you need the knowledge to be able to create products and services that your market needs, okay? So when we look at that, we realize that even our consumers that we're talking about today are more connected and they're interconnected. So when we think about, when we talked about financial inclusion and mobile technology, a lot of people were like, oh, but Africa, people, they can't afford it. They can't, they don't have phones, they don't have connectivity, they don't have infrastructure. But M-Pesa broke all the rules, because M-Pesa showed us that, even with the lowest of lowest technologies, with your Palasa phone, without data, you can transmit and you can connect to people and send and receive money. And money is a flow, right? Because what we're sending information about value. We're not really transmitting physical money from place to place, right? So what we're seeing is that digital telecommunications has enabled us to reach more people globally. Africa leapfrogged the analog telecommunications era. Africa leapfrogged the fixed line telecommunications era, because right now we all have in our pockets, again, to a certain degree, power that is more than what put a man on the moon in the 1960s, all right? So what do we do with that power? How do we enable ourselves with that power, okay? So we find out that consumers are interconnected. And then you realize that digital customers, because of globalization, they know what's going on in the world, right? The world is not opaque to them anymore. It's transparent. They want better, they have higher standards and they want better quality. So when you look at a Facebook user in Nigeria, he expects the same quality, services and features as a user in Sweden. So you have to think about a global audience. Whether, so we're here today, people are connected from all over the world. It's not about, oh, I'm going to do a Nigerian version and I'm going to do an international version. It's all one version today. So we have to think global in our outlook and in our thinking and in our reach. The second is Information is now multi-directional. You know, before we were working in an asynchronous mode, right? We were sending an email, you wait 24 hours, 3 days before you realize, oh, did someone get my email or not? And then you wait for the feedback. Today, we don't send emails, we send WhatsApp. And WhatsApp will tell you, has it been delivered? Has it been received? Has it been read? Okay, so that's really how fast it is. And the whole idea is that because you're working and competing in a market space, and you're competing for time, you're competing for share of wallet, you can't afford to say, oh, my office hours are 9 to 5, because your customers may be coming to you from a different time zone. Today, when I'm scheduling meetings, I always have to put the time zone that I'm referring to in my time. Because again, I don't know where anybody is in the world. So you can be working in a Nigerian company, you might be located in Canada, you might be located in Hong Kong. It really doesn't matter anymore. We can get the same work done. So when we're looking at information, information is multi-directional, right? We're in a world of information overload. We have informed customers, we have informed consumers, and they have choices. Why should they choose you? Your brand and the way you project your brand is an important role to tilt how a customer makes their decisions. Now, when we talk about customer decisions, sometimes a lot of us think that it's only pricing that informs a customer decision. No, it's not. A lot of customers also want to build long-term relationships with a brand that they can associate with and that resonates with their own belief system. So your brand has to have some ethos around it. Your brand has to have character and personality around it, not just that, oh, and it's not a statement, it's a visible representation of who you are and an embodiment of what you want to be and what you want to achieve in this life. Another thing you need to realize about consumers today is that consumers are more socially conscious. So yes, we want to raise billion-dollar entrepreneurs, but we want to do it in a responsible manner. That we have issues around climate change, we have issues around low education, but how do we ensure that we're giving back to our communities and we're enabling the communities so everybody around us becomes a billion-dollar entrepreneur in that sense, not just us, all right? Because if you're thinking only about yourself without trying to enable other people, you're also going to create a new social problem of insecurity and risk, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we also serve as enablers in that sense and driving other people's businesses and consumption? Another issue that we want to talk about is today there's no longer what we call a local business. We're all international SMEs, whether we like it or not, right? So when you talk about 15, 20 years ago, an SME with an international customer base would be an impossibility. But today, Nigerian businesses through social media alone are selling to different people around the world. Nigerian content through Netflix and other streaming platforms is being consumed worldwide. So we're all international businesses today. So how do you, as an entrepreneur, take your business beyond the immediate confines of your community and at a cheaper and faster rate? That's the only way. Companies that didn't exist yesterday, like a Flutterwave, for example, is now operating in 20 countries in Africa. How did that happen? This company is barely 10 years old, but then they're already operating around Africa. And that's what we mean by international SMEs. Technology enables you to scale fast and scale forward. But then again, you realize that nobody else is sleeping. There's also what we call international market competition. Everybody is fighting for the same share of wallet, the same addressable market as you are. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll be honest with you, there's no sentiment in business, right? And I say this every day because it is easier for me to buy any reading material, any resource, for example, on Amazon.com and have it delivered to me than it is for me to go to the bookshop and look for the same title, which I might not even get. So what we're also seeing is that the marketplace is international. The competitive environment is international. We're competing with people who have bigger resources, the big techs, right? They have bigger resources, they have bigger marketing might and bigger marketing power. So you have to also say, how do I work around these people who already have these large communities? And that's why you need to synthesize and harmonize yourselves with platforms like Growth Africa, that are also coalescing people like you to ensure that we can leapfrog and we can exponentially scale rather than trying to build everything from ground up, right? So this is this is a launching platform for local entrepreneurs aspiring to compete with global players and also play for market share, right? And it's all about your branding. The next group, so when you look at your customers and your customer base, it has to be broader. It has to be international. It has to be about how do I provide services 24/7, 365? You can't say, oh, we're closed. So how do you begin to leverage different services rather than saying I'm going to do everything myself, because your market is really a global market. The next perspective I want us to think about when we're talking about this global branding concept is really about now the gig workers. And we've talked, whether we like it or not, we're not all going to go and work for somebody 9 to 5, whether we're entrepreneurs or whether we're even knowledge workers. And so as a knowledge worker, as a creative artist, as a writer, I can be doing more work for different people in different markets and really deciding on how flexible I want to be, how much I want to earn a month, and then base my time working through gig platforms and online marketplaces like Upwork, TerraWork in Nigeria, Fiverr, etc. And you realize that whether you're doing this full time or you're doing this as a side hustle, right? Or as a gig worker, you're able to convert your knowledge into tangible work and labor and productivity and enhance your livelihood. You realize that many freelance and gig workers have been able to convert what started out as a side hustle into a full career and into a full professional practice. So you find out that, yes, you might not have worked in any of the big 4 consulting companies, but it requires building a strong brand through consistent quality of work, professionalism, and then having a digital presence that enables and takes your brand forward. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to stop soon so we can have time to ask questions and interact in general. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, feeding off that is the fact that we all have to be 21st century professionals. Today, before you meet somebody, or once you meet somebody, the next thing they do is Google your name, right? The next thing they do is check online. Even today, when you're applying for a visa, you have to provide your to project themselves in this way because you can't take it away. So ladies and gentlemen, when you're building your brand and trying to build a global brand, you have to build a global brand that is acceptable in the digital age. You have to build a global brand that projects and takes you always one step further and one step ahead. We have to realize that in the digital age that we're living in, there really is nothing that we're going to hide. There really is, but we need to be mindful that we need to project for the sake of our customers. We need to project for our own professionalism and our own development. And we need to project because at the end of the day, this is the mode of communication and projection today. So as we talk through this conference and as we talk through growing, realize that your brand is your persona, your brand is your speech, your thought, your style, etc., etc. So let's all be mindful of these things. Let's all begin to realize that we are who we say we are. We're not, you don't go to a studio for a photo today, but every day you actually are in the studio of life. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll pause now and take some questions, and then that gives us a lot more time to interact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Very, very rich section. So I think we have to open now. If you have any question for Prof, let's ask. People are raising up their hand. Let me see. Any question? So you can go ahead and ask any question if you have any question for Prof.
you're not limited to only the English-speaking community. How do you make mathematics fun? How do you build gamification tools around people learning mathematics? So it's not just, oh, come and see Daniel teach on a blackboard, etc., etc. So how do you convert and create an aura and a presence and content that is unique and differentiated? Okay, does that help you, Daniel?
Thank you so much. So we need to have one more question before we go. Any more question? Any more question? We have 5 minutes to go. I want.
I left time for questions because I didn't want to talk. I heard Samuel telling everybody, you have time. Your time is up. Your time is up.
Well, we need you to answer question. The question is coming in. Any question rolling in? Let's check. Admin, check if there's any question.
Okay, there is one in the chat now. Adeni McCarthy is asking, how do you build your brand in a way it can communicate multiple ideas you are involved in? Well, you see, Adeni, that's a tricky one, because you have to, what I would say is that you have to build a plan. And this is almost like having a communication plan as we do in the real world, right? And you have to stagger it and build it, because you see, it's not just about communicating and pushing out content. It's also about, is that content being consumed by the communities you're trying to reach? So you have to be very careful and say, who is the audience I'm trying to reach? You know, you can't be all things to all men in the world that we live in today. So have you narrowed down your segment? Is it a Facebook segment? Is it a LinkedIn segment, etc., etc.? Is it an Instagram segment for visibility purposes, right? And then how are you also communicating? How are you projecting your brand? Sometimes you might have to pay for adverts. And that's the reality. So I don't know how many of you remember, you know, when we're talking about in the good old days of Web 1.0, when we're talking about building websites, a lot of us would build websites, but we were not driving traffic to our website. So how do you promote and drive traffic to your website? So if you're selling goods and services, how do you ensure that, oh, your goods and services are known, and then you begin to project an image and a brand around your goods and services? So your communication plan has to be beyond, oh, this is done, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But it has to also say, and I think someone spoke about this in terms of what behaviors do you want to see from the market and the target that you're addressing, and how do you meet those needs? So it's a long-term process. It's not a sprint. It's really a marathon. And as you begin to engage, as you begin to coalesce, you begin to build more content, and you must do your analytics in terms of what are the interesting topics around what do people react to. It's not just about you're pushing stuff up, but you must, again, because the analytics are feedback, right? And so you must do those analytics as well. Then another question I have here is from Duro Jaye. And Duro Jaye says, how can one access profound customers? Duro Jaye, this is where, again, you have to look at market research data. And I know that there's some firms who actually help you build your customer base for a fee as well, you know. And I think one thing we need to realize is that because the internet is free, doesn't mean everything on the internet is free. So when you're trying to build things, you also have to say, what do I want to invest? Because in every business, you have to invest in your raw materials, in your production equipment, etc. In this kind of space now, what do I invest in my community? Your community doesn't come free. You have to get it at a cost, okay? So you have to think about it and build around that. How do I deal with competition while promoting my presence? Competition is here to stay. And competition is not just local, it's global. So what you do, but it's really about value. What's your proposition? What's your value offering? If you're not offering value, then competition will eat you for lunch. But then again, who is your customer? What's the value? What problem are you solving for your customer? And this really goes around your business model thinking and around how you project yourself and how you differentiate yourself in the marketplace and how you communicate. You know, a lot of us think that we can communicate easily. No, you have to think about how do your customers receive information? because the way you see information or the way you say information doesn't mean that's how it's being received. So we need to think about the behaviors of the customers we're trying to reach and ensure that they can receive information in the right way. How do you price products and services? You see, products and services are based on value. And then you
Please
also
go ahead,
have
man.
to,
Please go ahead.
okay, all right. Pricing products and services is based on value. And you also have to think about who are you attracting as an audience? What value are you giving? And who is your target market? So is your product or service a premium product? Is it a differentiated product? And you can't overcharge. So if you're offering something that is unique and special, then you're offering it to a premium market. If you're offering something that is mass market, like toothpaste, a physiological need, then it's a mass market product. So I think what people will say is that, again, does it solve my problem? If I'm buying toothpaste, will I buy the toothpaste like close up that will, yes, I might not like the taste, but it does clean my teeth. Or will I say, one of the things I'm looking for is that it must taste nice, it must smell nice, etc. So you have to understand what problem the customer is trying to solve. And then that helps you understand how much are they willing to pay for it. And if you look at the market we're in, we also live in an economy called the sachet economy, right? And when you look around Africa and Nigeria today, you see that we're buying things in sachets because a lot of the share of wallet and affordability is difficult. So you realize that everybody wants to spend 500 naira, but that 500 naira must do everything in somebody's life. It must buy him his food. He must buy him his gin or his rum or whatever he needs to drink. He must buy him his gari. So how do you ensure that you fit in that market if that is your customer segment? So you always need to know who your customer segment is and what affordability means to them. And then you price according to value. Okay, let me run through. How can you detect the best model for a business and steps to switch that model? You see, again, there's no best model because your consumers are changing every day. So you must continually test your business model and continually refine and iterate it, right? So it's not, what we're doing 10 years ago, we're not doing today again. What we were doing 2 years ago, we're not doing today again. So don't get stuck in a rut, right? Always be willing to adapt and evolve and continue to innovate, okay? That's John Unique, okay? Cosmos says, when you post content and get a lot of views, how can you convert views into value? So this is now about monetizing, Cosmos, right? So a lot of the things about the whole social media economy is the fact that you monetize by being an influencer. Because now people will come to you and say, and this is where you have models like Linda and KG and some of the popular blogs that we see, because they build a community, but building that community is now converting it into value. But be mindful that we now have data protection regulations that you need to be mindful of. So you can't just be selling or giving out people's information. So when you get your content and you get a lot, but don't forget that views are not, views are, again, you have to now convert views into tangibles. And that's really about how do you drag a lot of people on and how do you begin to, be a brand ambassador in this social media era as well. Okay, so Mayowa says, I'd like to get a few tips on how to build a good perception for my brand and make it stand out globally. Mayowa, you see, it depends on what you do and what your brand is. Is it your personal brand? Is it your product brand, etc., etc.? But in terms of making it stand out globally, it has to have an ethos. What is your brand's ethos? And that ethos has to speak to a lot of people. And sometimes, yes, we want to be billionaires, but we also need to be mindful that that is a long-term goal. But we need to embody our brand in some ethos around what speaks to the community. How do I ensure that I'm being a responsible developer? How do I give back and pay it forward? Okay, because that's another issue we also need to be mindful of. How do I pay it forward in helping people build themselves? And that also builds a brand for you, Mayowa. If you're not offering value, competition will eat your lunch. Exactly. Okay, so I think I've gone through all the questions now, Samuel.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Man.
Go ahead.
Will I conveniently call you a businesswoman?
Well, you see, I don't do labels or stereotypes or anything like that. I think that if that's how I personify myself to you today, then fine, so be it.
Thank you so much, man.
Thank
so
you
so
very
we
much. And
appreciate
thank you all for your engagement. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, man.
You too.
Bless you.
Take care. Thank you all.
Next 5 years, I can present this because we've gone ahead to define what we called
information doesn't mean that's how it
Fine. So by the time Oyeka comes, it tells us how to build a billion-dollar company. Thank you, guys.
it to your team members so that beyond you as the entrepreneur running the business, your team members have a clear vision of where this business is going based on your clear strategy that you've put in place. And then the 15 is forecast your cash requirements. Now, this speaks to how you go about funding the business. A very high growth business requires most of the time, especially in the tech space, especially also in fintech and in some other very high demand driven platforms, like what we're doing in Trips, you require a lot of capital. And so you've got to understand what your focus is. I'm talking to investors today in my business. I've already told them what my next round of investment will look like, and the round after that will look like. Many of them are already asking around, what will the return on investment look like in the next 2 years? I can present this. What will the return on investment look like in the next 5 years? I can present this because we've gone ahead to define what we called our cash requirement and forecast over a 5-year period, over a 10-year period in some cases, but 5 is ideal. For 2 years, for 3 years, for 5 years, what cash do we need? What capital do we need in place in order to meet our goals? Then you analyze all your receivables. So you analyze your credit checks. I mean, some businesses are those that are focused on how do I raise capital, invest, wait for a period, then recoup the investment, then reinvest. How do you sustain yourself within that cycle? How do you ensure that what is going out and what is coming in, your receivables are matching the sustainability of your business? That is critical, because if you don't have that in place, you will not be able to do the remaining two things the other two things that follow, which is controlling your cost and controlling your debt. Controlling your cost from where you're not spending and outspending yourself to a point where you finish up your capital in the first 2 months and you have nothing again to sustain the business for the next 1 year. Or you have given out so much leverage for debt, and so you have a lot of money outside and you don't have money inside to run your business. And so that is why the first part around analyzing your receivables and payables will then influence your cost versus debt. Cost, how much you're putting into the business to sustain it, and then debt around how much you have given leeway for your potential partners to take from you and hold on to cash while waiting to run your business. Then the last thing on this business front is getting refinancing you need. Now, it's always important that because you started from the beginning and understanding where your exit is, it influences the kind of investors you bring on board. Now, you can't be building a business that you want an exit in the next 15 years. Maybe you're looking at profitability and you're talking to an investor that wants to exit in the next 2 years. And because he has capital, you want him in. And then what you're only inviting is pressure that will come from the ability to grow your business to meet his own KPIs, which is around
making sure you turn around this business to a point that he can get a return on his investment in the next 2 years. There is patient capital and there's fast capital. If you're going to grow a high growth business and you want to turn it around in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then your model should originally from the onset sit on how you identify your growth plans, you put your strategies, and then very critical is who you call your partners that you're going to bring into the business for you to get this business to its desired goal. Partners including your investors. And so your investors, you've got to pay attention to who is coming to bed with you. You don't want the person that is up for a quick win and you're talking to him about a delayed win. You don't want the person that wants a delayed win and you're talking to him about a quick win. You got to do your research to understand who exactly am I talking to. And then at that point, how do I go about refinancing the need of my business over a long period? Now, so those are 9 major things that I have seen that are critical to running a rapid business growth without burning yourself out. First, define your growth objectives. Second, do a growth diagnosis of the business. Third, ensure your growth is sustainable. Fourth, prepare a growth strategy. 5, forecast your cash requirements. 6, analyze receivables and payables, which leads to 7 and 8 being cost control and debt control. And then the last thing is get refinancing for your business needs. Now, I'm going to talk at this point about my own personal views on lessons that I have learned building high growth businesses. And these are my own personal views. So in the experience of running Farm Crowdy, exiting Crowdyverse, co-founding other businesses like Rent Small, or investing in businesses, or even running the one I'm running now, Trips, that has within 2 years, we've now grown from Nigeria, we're now in Ghana, we moved over 500,000 people within that time frame. What have been my lessons in this? There are 5 things, key things. One of them is in your setting up of goals, you should have clear vision. It's something that is critical, and the vision must be something that is not just for you alone, but everybody on the team clearly understand it. Don't have lofty goals, please. It's very exciting to have, it's very exciting to present, but mainly they create a lot of damage from 2 angles. The people you're talking to about coming on board will sense that these are lofty goals, would sense that these are not really critical things to the success of the business. And then 2, your team members will not know exactly what to do. Let me use an example. The process of setting KPIs across my organizations has taken us 6 weeks. We didn't just come from the place. We had a process to set KPIs. We were running on KPIs that we were using in the past, but we noticed that the KPIs of maybe the operations team is slightly different from the KPIs of the marketing team and doesn't fit into the overall goal for the company. And so we came back to the point where we understood the company KPIs away from lofty goals, company KPIs that will get us good valuation, that will get us good numbers and impact in people's lives. And then from the company KPIs, we started breaking it down to seeing what do the individual teams have to do to support the overall goal for the company. The second thing I would say is, in my own lessons that I've seen, is prioritize values and culture. Now, one thing that I do when I'm recruiting in my company, I make sure that in analyzing who I am going to get on board to join us, the first thing goes through 3 stages of recruitment. The first stage of recruitment is where you show your CV, you show your competency, you wow everybody with first class and distinction, and everybody's excited about that. So you've got the skill set and we're happy. Then you get into stage 2, where you then meet your potential leader. So maybe ideally the person that will run the department that you'll be reporting to. So you get to meet your colleagues or your potential boss or your potential the person you're going to be reporting to. And then there's an analysis at that point around competency and fit. Then you go into stage 3. Now, stage 3 is critical, and that's where it's actually me that gets involved. I'm not going to be analyzing you for your skills. I'm not going to be analyzing you for how you fit into the team, because I expect that the people on my team have done a good job in getting you to that point where you're meeting with me. What I analyze you for in that last interview is whether you fit into the core values that we've set for ourselves as a business. Core values around humility, hunger, having fun, integrity, being people smart, emotional intelligence, excellence, and speed. If you don't meet up with this, and most of the time I have questions that I ask, I try to make it very relaxed so that the person can come out of their shell. I ask questions that are away from work, just to allow me understanding. Engagement of an individual in the company is something you've got to consistently analyze almost on a weekly basis. You cannot assume that a person is engaged based on what they are reporting or sharing with you per time. You want to be crystal clear that the level of engagement of an individual is also telling on the results the person is getting. I recently had a session with all 58 of my staff in trips across Nigeria and Ghana. And one very critical thing I said there was, we're going to pay attention less to the busybody work and more to the result-driven person. It's more about the results you get than coming from a place where it looks like you're busy and there's so much happening, but very little results to show. This is something that we've got to consistently find ways to manage as entrepreneurs growing our business, that every person involved is engaged 100%, and you can clearly identify the results they are bringing to your business that is resulting in 2x or 3x growth in the business because that person is working. The fourth thing is learn to measure and improve trust and accountability. Now, on this part, in trips and in farm crowding, on a weekly basis, I think it happens in trips and in farm crowding on Mondays, but in trips we do it on Fridays. The entire organization is able to see the KPIs across different teams, and everybody comes to defend their KPIs, and everyone's able to say, this is what I did last week, and this is what I will do next week. Now, more focus, 80% of the time, is on what you did last week, so that the organization sees, and this is across board, they see that the operations team have moved 5,000 people on Monday and 7,000 people on Tuesday, and has plans to move 10,000 people on Wednesday of next week. How does the marketing team support that? What resulted in those numbers? Was there a decline? How was that decline achieved? Was there a growth? How was that growth achieved? On a weekly basis. The entire organization then has a clear understanding of what the Nigerian team is doing, of what the Ghanaian team is doing on a weekly basis. And that way, when you come back on Mondays and you want to start the meeting on what the team will do for the week, it's clear to everyone. It's clear to all individuals on the team what exactly you're doing and what the other person is doing. And thereby you build trust and accountability, because I can now hold you accountable knowing that your goals affect mine. And so I need to do stuff to help you so that it helps me. And that way you see teamwork boost the team's growth. Then the last thing I have seen is always build a data-driven mindset as part of the culture in the team. Everything, when you talk and say, oh yeah, so we're talking to XYZ number of, we're talking to the biggest XYZ in the industry and that. Okay, how many of them did you speak with? How many of them have responded? How many of them? You need to always use data to analyze, to get your team to have data as part of their culture in talking back to you around the things that you need for the business to succeed. And so those are things that I have identified. In just summarizing now, the 5 things that I mentioned are: 1, do away with lofty goals, have clear vision. 2, prioritize values and culture in your recruitment process. It starts from there. 3, don't assume engagement. Don't assume engagement. Make sure everyone is giving you 2x, 3x what they are meant to give you. 4, learn to measure and improve trust openly. And 5, build a data-driven culture for your team members. So I hope that helps us on this. And I'm really grateful to Samuel for the opportunity. I think that's my time. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
You can't go. You can't go. People have to ask you question. This is rich. This is rich. This is Oyeka is just an amazing guy. You need to learn from him. This is not practical. This is not theory. This is what we can see. All of us, we can see it clearly. So it's best to ask questions about your startup. Oh, there are a lot of questions coming in. Somebody's asking, KPI results. Can you see the question?
Yeah. Okay, the person is just coming back to saying the things that I said, so that's fine.
Okay. You have any other question? You guys should check. Let's ask question. Oyeka must never go without asking question. If not so, even me, I go ask a question. We need to ask him. This guy is just full of results. It's something we can all see. It's everywhere. The results are everywhere. We need to ask him question. We need to ask him question. But Oyeka, how are you able to manage the cross-border management? How are you able to manage it?
Okay, so it's about teams. I think a lot of things around success and growth sits on teams and structure. One of the things we did was in expanding from Nigeria to Ghana, and we're in the process of expanding to another country in East Africa. That should happen really soon. In expanding from Nigeria to Ghana, the first thing that I did was to identify who exactly will help us build that market. And as soon as we identified a solid individual that was already doing something similar to what we did, went ahead to acquire his startup and then brought him in with his team to then run our operations for Ghana. And so he became our country manager for Ghana, but he was already experienced in the space. He already had a very clear idea of what our goals were. And so over time, we then brought them in. So they came into Nigeria, they learned our culture. We were able to walk through the process of recruiting.
Wow.
And that has now led into him managing the Ghanaian operations. And recently, I mean, we had the Ghanaian operations, we've now reached about 500 people that have used the service already in the first 30 days, and it's growing. And we see a lot of potential from there. So it starts with the team. The team is able to do this, and I give them a good level of autonomy to make decisions. Because, I mean, this guy was an entrepreneur building his business. I wouldn't say to him, do everything the way I want you to do it. I'm able to have the humility to learn from him, to learn about the market, allow him express himself with his team, and successfully execute. So those are the things that we've done, and it makes it easier for me. I don't have to be on everybody's case in all the countries I have to go to. And we have serious ambitions to really grow into many countries. So we're using this as a case point, and we see us going to other.
There's a lot of questions for you, Oyeka. Can you pick like 2?
Yeah, sorry. Sterling performance from you, sir. What's your advice for one floating an indigenous startup? I don't know what an indigenous startup is. A startup is a startup. A business is a business. When you say indigenous, I guess you mean maybe starting something in Nigeria. I think a startup will always be, I always build businesses, not just for my client. I build businesses that will have impact on millions of people's lives. Before I start out in my business, I make sure they fit into my goals, my clear values. I knew that I wanted to do business in 3 sectors: agriculture, real estate, and transportation. And I knew this since 2009. So I didn't just stumble on the idea. I was working on it for instance, I started trips in 2019. And I knew I was going to do something in transportation in 2000. That's 10 years of actually researching and just getting some ideas before going into it. I started Farm Crowding in 2016. That was 7 years from when I knew I would do something in agriculture. I started Rent Small in 2018. That was 9 years. So I don't just jump into idea. I start up with, I have clear goals. I have a vision of what I want to do. I make sure I focus on those areas that I am particular about. And then I build not for my local market alone. I build for my local market, and I want to make sure it has value across the continent. And so advice for one floating a business like that, it will be first identify the right people on the team, have clear goals on what you want to achieve. It means we have West and East Africa, and then we start consolidating backwards.
Wow.
In the next 18 months, we want to be in 6 countries,
Wow.
six countries or more. And we already have those countries. We've already started putting plans in place over there. So it's about building the team to get into that point. Locally in Nigeria, we will make major partnerships with bus operators here. We will launch some new products. There's one we will launch before Christmas. I will launch some new products, and we want to make sure that people, if you want to travel from one city to another city, just the way you will go on a travel website to book for your flights, we want people to be able to come on trips and book for their bus tickets, taking them from one city to the other. On our mobile app today, yeah, on our mobile app. Yeah, that's
Will that be an instant? Okay,
yeah,
okay.
so you will see on our mobile app today, you can download the app. You will see GUO, you will see Libra Motors, you will see ABC, you will see you will see a couple Afex. So you see different bus operators. We've aggregated their inventory on our platform so that if you want to travel with any of these guys, you can just search and then say, I'm going from Lagos to Abuja. It then gives you a breakdown of the different bus operators when they're traveling and all of that. So those are things we've done. And Christmas is a big season. So we want to make sure people are able to see the opportunity to use trips for that kind of purpose around the holidays that are coming.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much. There's a question for you, Mr. Oyeka. I really wanted to answer this question.
Yeah, go ahead. What's the question?
You can see it's the chatbot.
Okay. Okay, there are 2 questions here. So is fund a major decision in startup? And then second is, what are the basic courses or training one should take as a startup? Okay, so let me start with the second question. Is fund a major decision? Yes, funding is key. You cannot start a business without funding. Even if it's your own capital, you can't, because except you're doing a business, you're not going to pay salaries. If you're going to pay salaries and you want to start a business from the first day that you need to pay salaries, you need to raise money because the business is not making money yet to pay those salaries. So you need to raise funding. So yes, funding is critical to starting a business. The question should be, what kind of funds do I need to start a business? And am I clear on my use of funds to grow the business? Because the question is not about whether you need funding or not. It's that you need funding, it's critical. But what kind of funding do I need? How much do I need? And then 2, am I clear on what I will use the funds for to grow the business, where I won't find myself in a position that the people I got the funds from the first time do not see the progress that I promised the business will have, and are not convinced about funding me again because they are seeing growth. So those are the more critical questions as an entrepreneur you should answer. Then the question about basic courses or training one should take as a startup. A startup is a business. So the business is not taking courses. I guess you mean as an entrepreneur, if you're the person running a business. You're on this particular program, you're hearing me. This is my own self sharing with you so that you learn from it and then you use. I think a lot of people talk about having MBAs and having degrees. Those things are good. They're good to help you build your horizon. They'll be good to help you enlarge your scope. But the more important thing they do is they help you network. And that's how I see value in those things. They just help you network. The real school of entrepreneurship is in starting your business today and learning from your mistakes today, and then getting mentors or getting advisors that you will be able to learn from their own process to starting their business. I am a student of reading books. I read a lot of books. I have a book for each different season in my life, of my business or my career. If I'm doing fundraising, I am reading a book on fundraising. If I'm hiring, I'm reading a book on hiring. If I'm expanding to a new market, I'm reading a book on how to expand and manage teams across borders. So I'm always reading from books, and I'm trying my best to apply that knowledge into the things I'm doing on a daily basis in my business. So Samuel, I will have to go now because I have a call in 10 minutes. So I need to prepare for that. But I'm hoping that I've been able to answer many of the questions that have come up.
For 20 minutes or so about our company. A little bit about myself. My name's Dave Stevenson. I'm the Group CEO of QBS Software, and I will be talking today about the best strategy in running a global distribution channel. So that's me. And the question that you probably want to know is, why am I qualified to speak with you on this topic? So I started my business in May 2017. So we're about 4.5 years old now. Today, I've grown that business quite substantially, and I'll talk a little bit about our business now. So 4 years old, we have 150 employees. We're across 10 locations in UK, Germany, France, Russia, and Sweden. We have almost 10,000 software publishers live on our distribution platform, and we have about 6,000 resellers using our platform. So in total, about 240,000 companies across the world have used our distribution platform. So rule one, this is what I learned at Harvard Business School in America, where I met Sammy. He taught me, you got to know where you're playing and got to know how you're going to win. So I'll touch on these points later. Secondly, you've got to choose your product very, very carefully. There are two big barriers to growth at scale. Number one is cash, and number two is timing. By cash, I mean money, and these affect everything. So if you choose a product that you've got to design, you've got to make it, you've got to import it, you've got to clear customs, delivery, it's going to consume a lot of time and a lot of cash, and that's going to delay your growth. I chose software for me because software is really instant and it's a really important market in Western Europe. The third rule is you need to have those best people on the team. Never, ever underestimate the power of good teams. You invest in those people and their teamwork, and then you'll get the results. So here's a little bit about our company. We have an established market position. As I said, the company started May 17, and now we're one of the leading software delivery platform. So many of you will know the Apple App Store, the Google Play Store, the Windows Store, and the Amazon Store. These four are the big four in the world. Then you have specialist ones like Salesforce, SAP, Oracle. Then finally, you have the next tier, which are the development ones with QBS, Red Hat, and Atlassian. So that's where we sit. So you can see we've really got some huge competitors in there, you know, like mega companies, but we're able to survive because we've got a defined niche. This is a little bit about our growth. Why we like the software market is it's expected to grow by a CAGR of 14% in the next 5 years. So CAGR means the compound annual growth rate. So it's a very good way of saying how big an industry is going to grow. So if you get into a new industry, make sure it's got a large CAGR. The TAM in 2021 is in excess of $40 billion. TAM means the total available market. So if we had 100% market share, our company could be 40 billion, but there's no chance to get 100% market share. And marketplaces, like we've set up, are supposed to be the dominant sales channel for enterprise software and distribution. And what we've done to stop any barriers to growth is build a completely elastic model. So we have, a very, very impressive Microsoft server which delivers our software licenses. And here you can see our growth. We started with nothing, then we got 10 million, then 40 million, then 70 million, then 110, then this year 155, and then next year 200. So our plan's to hit £1 billion by 2030. So many of you will be wondering how many pounds to the dollar, and a pound is a little bit stronger than a dollar. So that's about 250 million US dollars, so $250 million next year. So we talk about people and it's having that effective leadership and management. In our company, our biggest asset is our people, and our leaders develop our people, and we drive these people by what we call EX. EX is employee experience. Do our employees like working for us? If they do like working for us, will they work longer and harder and create better results? And we manage these using something which we call OKRs, which is really popular with the sort of tech companies from Silicon Valley, sort of like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. And here is where we have 4 or 5 objectives, which you can see down here. And then we have 5 key results. So it could be financially orientated, it could be environmentally orientated, it could be employee orientated. And then our leadership. The most critical thing is our leaders who drive our people. They lead the way, they work well with others, they actually get things done so they're effective, and they live our culture. If they do this, they will develop the people which follow our values of passion, accountability, success, and trust. And that creates this long-term stakeholder value. So that's how we work. We have a well-structured team. This is a really important thing for our company, and this is about being ethical. So we were the first company in our industry to become carbon neutral. By our industry, I mean our type of level in the industry, and that was really good. And I've since spent a lot of my time helping other people become carbon neutral and explaining why it's important not to consume the Earth's resources and try and actually be climate positive. Secondly, we try to become a B Corporation. A B Corporation has huge value both with investors and consumers and the staff, because it means your company meets the highest standards of social and environmental impact. This is something which is definitely worth using. So our motto is make business a force for good, and that's what we try and do. And then it's strong business results. So we're really, really pleased that we've been recognized by the London Stock Exchange, Bloomberg as a breakaway, various industry awards, various banks, and Dun & Bradstreet. And we've been recognized for our fast growth and as well as how well we look after our people. And rather modestly, I've been recognized by EY, which is a large accountancy firm, as a UK regional finalist for Entrepreneur of the Year, which was quite proud. So comes down to the critical stuff. Have you got a clear business plan? Do you know where you're playing? Okay, and then how you're going to win. So our management, who sit underneath the directors, they've got to focus really, really hard on their clarity of vision and their ability to execute. And we manage this through our key performance indicators, our OKRs, and having a really clear, explicit strategy. We've done that as well. We've built a system, which is a live financial model, is integrated into our software platform, and it tracks our business, our budget plans, variances, deviations across 90 dimensions and 16 measures. All of this in near real time in our dashboard, so we can see performance of the platform, how many people are buying, how many people are browsing, what they're doing. The next thing we make sure is we really focus time on having the right publishers and the right resellers. Publishers are our suppliers. So we've defined to everyone in the company what good looks like and what we want, and the right customers. So in business, if you can choose your right suppliers and right customers, motivate your staff, everything becomes very easy. And here you can see one of our staff, Melissa, saying very, very clearly, it's simple at QBS. we know where we're playing and how we're going to win, which is what I spoke about at the beginning. This is a critical part of the business. So a little bit about our purpose. So when you set the company up, you've got to have a really clear feeling. Why do you exist? What is your purpose in life? So I would say our purpose is to create long-term stakeholder value. And you'll probably say to me, Dave, Sammy, who are your stakeholders? And I say there's 5. Number 1, we have our prosperity, which is our shareholders. Are they getting a return on their investment? Number 2, our people. Are these people really enjoying working in our company? Is it the right place to spend their career? The third one is our publishers, which are our suppliers. Are we paying them on time? Are we growing their business? Are we finding them the right clients? Yes. The fourth one is our partners. These are our customers. Do they enjoy working with us? And then finally, the fifth one is the planet. Are we looking after the planet? Are we making it safe for the next generation? Then we have our vision. Where do we want to be? In 10 years' time, we'll look back and say, we've achieved something. But, in life, you've got to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, you can end up anywhere. And this is the biggest single thing I see with entrepreneurs or aspirational entrepreneurs. They don't have a clear vision of what they want to go. So for ours, we want to be the leading software delivery platform in Europe. Our mission is how are we going to do that? What's going to make us do that? And we know that if we enable software publishers and resellers to optimize their procurement process, that will give us to that. So clear purpose, a clear vision and mission. And I touched on our values. We employ people who mirror the company's values. Are they passionate? Are they accountable? Do they take the blame for when they go wrong? Do they take credit for when they've done well? Are they caring? Are they successful? Do they look after their customers and their colleagues and the environment? And can we trust them? That's what we look for. So a really clear business plan is critical. So I wanted to share this with you because I think this slide probably says as much as you need to know as we go into the last 5 minutes. It's more the technical side. And this is the sort of secret sauce, how you can be successful. First of all, our company motto is where great people work together. By that, we've got to work as a team because teams achieve more. And we work with our customers and we have our suppliers. So if you look at the top in the key strategic blocks around there, these are the 3 people that are important, these 3 cohorts. Our customers, this is what we need to do to them. Our employees, make them better, make them more efficient, make them feel valued. And our suppliers, help them sell more, improve their business, and make it easier to do business with us. So what drives the value in our industry? And I think it's the same probably in many industries. We must become the market leader. We've got to become the dominant one in our little niche. We're never going to replace Apple or Amazon or Microsoft, but in what we do in enterprise software, we are the undisputed leader. Expertise, we must have these expert people. We either hire experts or we train them. Our product range, we must have a wide product range. When people come to us, they can get everything they need. Operational excellence, absolutely critical. We've got to be the best at what we do. We've got to automate it as much as possible. And finally, footprint. We've got to have the biggest number of customers and the largest number of people using our software. And if we do that, we'll have a positive employee experience, positive customer experience, and a positive supplier experience. And that creates sustainable long-term stakeholder value, which, if you remember, ties right back in to our vision. So a little bit about how we create value. As a software distributor, we've got nothing. We put our purpose, our mission, our vision and values in to the left-hand side over here. We then find the best employees. We recruit them, we train them, develop them, we get them engaged and we keep them. And then we focus very much on our strategy, which is these key areas here, which is relevant to our business, but not so relevant to share today. We recognize we have different stakeholders. We talked about the employees, the customers, and the publishers. What do they want? How do we deliver this? Our customers want a single place to buy everything. They want to be dealt with professionally. They want it to be easy. So they want a fast, reliable, responsive service. And the same for our suppliers. They want the same. So we make sure they get that. And how do we measure this? How do we know we're doing well? So we look at our employee experience, look at our customer experience, and our publisher experience. We look at how we're tracking against our environmental standards. We measure by OKRs, and we also want to be the best place to work. If we do all this, we'll have that profitable growth. We'll make a lot of money. We'll keep that market leadership and externally be recognized as a great place to work. So you see quite clearly, this is how we create value. We put words in at left and money out at the right. This is our operating model, which probably isn't too relevant today because I'm running tight on time. But you can see how our procurement, our selling, and our management all align up together, and they move around through this fast, reliable, responsive service. Finally, our value position, which is the last slide because I've only got like 30 seconds left. We believe where great people work together is what we do, and how we have a USP, which is a unique selling proposition, is we make it easy for our customers to deliver the widest range of software for a single platform in a unified manner. So in business, it's all about being easy. So I'm going to use some words in the last 20 seconds. We're dedicated, we're focused. We're the experts, we improve things for our customers. And we do that by making it easy, cheaper, and better. And finally, we're a specialist. So whatever you choose to do as entrepreneurs in Africa, pick your battle, think wisely about what you do. When you decide, do it with the full force of all your heart. My time's up now, but I'd like to thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you, Sammy, for inviting me to speak to you all.
Thank you so much. Steve is just an amazing guy, building a wonderful software distribution channel globally. I think it's time for us to ask questions from him. He's a rare guy. He's an opportunity to ask questions. Is there a question for him? There's a question for you. Steve, check the chat box.
Okay, let me just check the chat. Yeah, certainly. Yes, that is a very good question. So first of all, Olamide, I'd like to thank you for asking that question. So number one, we intend to expand into Southern Europe first. That will take another couple of years. Then after that, we'll probably go to the Middle East and then down into Africa. So we do intend to go to Africa, but not for the next 3 or 4 years, because the big market at the moment for us is in Western Europe.
So you have another question about the writing.
Again, that's a good question, because a lot of this is down to opinion. But one thing we did very early in our career is we realized that when we had the best people, we got better results. Now, that is the single most important thing. But we didn't really know what best looked like. We knew some people were better than others. So we started looking at our hiring process. And that hiring process was quite bad. We realized we had to improve it. And we learned something was we needed to hire people invisibly. We didn't need to look in detail at their CV, so where they went to school, what job, what their hobbies were, because we kept finding that we kept employing people like us, like our friends. What we really need to do is look at people who have skills. So as we talk about this diversity element, so we put the CV on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, we asked them 6 questions. And those questions were all independent and marked by a separate manager. And by doing that, we then found out we got the best people. And that's kind of how we did that. And that worked well for us. Okay, the next question is, what's the best strategy to build a global distribution channel when you have limited resources? I think, Mayowa, the first one you've really got to think about is, how can I find a product which I don't have to buy before I sell it? So you really, in normal business, you buy, then you sell. In the tech business, you sell, then you buy. And that allows you to grow. Secondly, if you have a physical product like wood or cars and things you have to import from Japan, America, or somewhere, it's a long time getting over. So if you've got limited resources, choose a product which you can sell, which doesn't really exist. It could be, consultancy, it could be software, it could be music, it could be something like that. And I think that's the best strategy to do it, although that's quite tough. Sheena, you've asked me to differentiate between KPI and OKR. That's a very, very good question. So a KPI is like a key performance indicator. So that could be a measure like how much profit you're making, how much sales revenue you're making, how many people you employ, etc. An OKR is a blend of objective and key result. My objective could be to have 70% staff retention there, and the key result would be that I've had 65% or 80%. So KPI should be a key indicator, should be 5 things which are very, very objective and drive your business. OKRs can be a little bit more subjective because you're talking about softer things like people development and environmental footprint, as well as customer count and things like that. And Huawei has asked me, what support does QBS have for smaller software developers? We tend to allow every software publisher on our platform as long as they have some existing business, and then we work with them. And some of our software publishers are quite small. What generally happens is most software publishers grow very big, very, very quickly. So we've seen brands like DocuSign, when we started working with them, to be very small, and they've become like huge now. There's another company called Miro, who we have grown 3 times in the last 2 years. And only yesterday, Invicti Security had an investment of $600 million into their digital application security testing. So, I think we just start off with selling it, get the business going, and then we just watch things grow. The best thing for software is the more you sell, the more people use it, etc. So it's fine. And I think, in summary, I think the questions have run out, Sam, and I'm very conscious of going over time.
Yes. Dave, you've done an amazing job. We appreciate you so much. Quite in depth, and at least it's more eyes-opening about digital product and how they can move fast and all of that. And a couple of people have learned a lot of things about the product. And you've done an amazing job within 4 years. Company is running above £100 million right now. That is really, really amazing.
Yeah, well, so Sammy, thank you very much. I mean, I think when I met you, you inspired me to do more. And, as entrepreneurs like yourself who give us that, confidence to do more. And I appreciate everybody joining today. And I hope time is useful for you. And I wish you every success on your journey.
Thank you so much. I will keep talking, Dave. And do have a wonderful day. Regards to the team. Yeah, bye.
Cheers. Thank you very much, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.